When a man says, "I need space," it can feel like the ground disappears beneath you. Your mind races, your chest tightens, and suddenly every memory replays in fast forward. You wonder if this is the beginning of the end. If space is just a softer word for goodbye. But here's the truth: most people never explain. Space is not always separation. Sometimes it is regulation. Sometimes it is restoration. Sometimes it is the only way he knows how to breathe without feeling overwhelmed. Men are often conditioned from an early age to process emotions internally. To solve rather than share. To retreat rather than unravel in front of someone. When pressure builds, whether from work stress, financial responsibility, emotional expectations, or even the intensity of love itself, many men instinctively step back, not to disconnect, but to stabilize. And this is where misunderstandings begin. Because for many women, connection is regulation. Talking it out creates safety. Closeness reduces anxiety. Reassurance restores balance. So when he steps back, it feels like abandonment, when in reality, he may be trying to prevent emotional overflow. Space is often his version of emotional processing. Imagine a pressure valve on a machine. When tension builds, it releases steam to prevent explosion. His need for space can function the same way. Without it, he may become irritable, defensive, or emotionally shut down completely. This does not mean every request for space is healthy, but many are misunderstood. There is a psychological concept called emotional flooding. When someone feels overwhelmed by emotion or expectation, their nervous system shifts into self-protection mode. Some people chase closeness during this state, others withdraw. Withdrawal is not always avoidance. Sometimes it is self-soothing. Consider Daniel, 34, deeply in love but overwhelmed by career instability. When discussions about the future intensified, he began saying he needed space. His partner interpreted this as doubt about the relationship. Arguments escalated. Tension grew. But when Daniel finally articulated what was happening internally, he explained that he felt inadequate. He feared disappointing her. Space was not about loving her less. It was about coping with his own fear of not being enough. Many men experience space as a way to regain competence, to recenter their identity outside the relationship, especially in cultures where masculinity is tied to achievement, strength, and emotional control. When closeness feels like pressure rather than partnership, distance becomes relief. But here is the delicate balance. Healthy space is temporary and respectful. Unhealthy space is vague, indefinite, and emotionally cold. Healthy space sounds like, "I care about us. I just need a few days to clear my head." Unhealthy space sounds like, "I don't know what I want. Just stop asking." The difference is intention. If he communicates care while asking for space, that is regulation. If he withdraws without reassurance or accountability, that may be avoidance. Your response during this moment shapes the trajectory of the relationship. Chasing, pleading, or demanding reassurance may intensify his urge to retreat, not because he doesn't care, but because pressure increases overwhelm. Instead, grounded calmness creates safety. You might say, "I understand you need space. I care about you, and I'm here when you're ready to talk." This communicates strength, not desperation. It shows emotional stability. And stability is magnetic. There is also something deeper happening during space. Absence creates contrast. When you are not overavailable. When you continue living your life, nurturing friendships, pursuing goals, maintaining independence. He has the opportunity to feel the difference between having you and not having you. Space, when healthy, often renews appreciation. But this requires self-trust. You must regulate your own anxiety, because the urge to close the gap immediately often comes from fear of abandonment. And here is the powerful shift. If someone truly wants to leave, forcing closeness will not prevent it. But if someone simply needs clarity, patience gives them room to return willingly. Attachment theory explains this beautifully. Individuals with avoidant tendencies equate intense closeness with loss of autonomy. Individuals with anxious tendencies equate distance with rejection. When these two styles interact, a push-pull dynamic forms. The anxious partner moves closer. The avoidant partner steps back. Without awareness, this cycle repeats endlessly. But awareness changes everything. If you respond to space with self-respect instead of fear, you interrupt the cycle. You demonstrate that closeness is a choice, not a demand. And paradoxically, this makes closeness safer for him. There is also the biological component. Stress elevates cortisol. High cortisol reduces emotional availability. Men under stress often prioritize problem-solving over bonding. They return to connection once stability is restored. So sometimes, space is not relational. It is neurological, however. You must also evaluate consistency. If space becomes a recurring escape whenever accountability arises, if it is used to avoid growth, commitment, or emotional responsibility, then it shifts from regulation to evasion. Healthy love requires communication, even during distance. The goal is not to eliminate space. The goal is to redefine it. Space should create clarity, not confusion. Growth, not insecurity. When handled maturely, space can deepen trust. Because both partners learn they can step away briefly without the bond collapsing. That is emotional security. Real intimacy is not constant proximity. It is knowing the connection remains, even in silence. So the next time he says, "I need space," pause before panic. Regulate before reacting. Observe his tone, his reassurance, his follow-through. And most importantly, stay rooted in your own worth. Because someone needing space does not diminish your value. It simply reveals how they process intensity. Healthy relationships are not about eliminating distance entirely. They are about learning how to navigate it without losing each other. And sometimes, space is not the end of closeness. It is the beginning of a more conscious one.